If you're just waiting until that is pretty sure. I was like, I'll go ahead and give the channel a pitch for videos. But I've never seen it.
Okay, we're going to start in about 5 minutes. Like usual, I'm going to ask for announcements, and I'm going to stand there awkwardly, and you guys are going to give us announcements and stuff. So think about that ahead of time. Have a quick pitch of whatever your announcement is. Awesome.
Check one. We're going to start in about 5 minutes, and I'm going to do that weird thing where I'm going to do announcements. So if you have announcements, think about them ahead of time before you go for a pitch. Yeah, move on into the area for the next 5 minutes.
Maybe it'll be a hassle. I love the time lag. I can come over and like watch myself walk over.
What I'll do is I've actually got to help you make the announcement. I've actually got to meet up. So I appreciate it.
Awesome.
We're going to start here. You have hard time understanding in general? Oh. I thought you were right. I don't know what okay, can you, does that, I'm getting an echo, are you guys
It sounds worse with the microphone.
It sounds worse with the microphone?
Yeah.
Wait, let's try it.
This is me yelling.
This is me with the microphone.
Yeah, it's less clear.
Less clear with the microphone?
And see how well you heard me say that?
Check it out. This is the. You can't hear me? We do.
Yeah, I think it's the mic is needed. Sorry.
The mic is needed?
I got a big room.
Where?
Take a vote?
It's been 15 minutes back to that.
I'm gonna go with the mic for now, and then we'll get used to it, and then it'll sound awesome once you hear my voice on it. Okay, so we're gonna start. We got the November DevOps meetup, and we're super stoked about this. We're gonna do announcements first, and then we're gonna hear about this awesome place that we're at, which is I believe it's called the Grid or the Grid Connected Workspace. And I'm interested in finding out about this. We have a lot of discussions on Slack about remote working. So I think that you guys are interested in it too, so we're going to do that. So here's the weird awkward part where I ask you guys for announcements. So please just raise your hand or whatever, and I'll do announcements while I'm waiting awkwardly for you guys to yell things out. We just completed the first DevOps Days, Kansas City, and yeah, was anybody there? Yeah, I thought it was a success. I thought it was super awesome. Could you do something for me? If you went to it, we sent you an email, it's probably too long or whatever. There was a survey in it. Click on the survey and give us feedback on what it's doing better next year, because we want to continue to make that better. And that's really important to us, because like I said at the conference, we were all first-time organizers, so we did the best we could. Mistakes were going to be made, and they were, and we want to make them better. So that's a big one. If you haven't joined the conversation on Slack, the thing was going behind me before, but now it's not. It's devopskc.herokuapp.com. Join that. Do we have any announcements from anyone else? I think we got here. Come on up. Did the mic get better over time, or did you get used to it?
I played it fit.
My name is Chris Cave. I work with Convergence. We're a business and IT staffing firm. First, I just want to thank you for letting me come up here and make an announcement to you guys. I left some business cards on the table there in front of the laptop. Just wanted to come and introduce myself and Convergence. We specialize in IT business staffing, obviously doing contracts, contract to hires, firm placements, and stuff like that. And we've actually got a couple of DevOps roles here in the Kansas City area. Primarily work with like automation, Puppet Enterprise, different things like that. So if you or anyone you know of is interested or looking, definitely grab my card, send me an email. I definitely would love to network with all of you. I've unfortunately been double booked for tonight. Like I said, grab my business card, send me an email, send me a note. I'd love to be with you and network with you and take you out for a cup of coffee or lunch or anything like that. So, thanks.
Thank you. It's a good time to be in DevOps. There's like bountiful opportunities and stuff. Put a few things on your resume and you get a lot of calls. That's awesome. Is Jennifer around? Can she come up? Oh, she's on her way up. Did anybody else have any other announcements? This is your chance. Folks on the way up. This is your chance to dance. I'm just filling time right now. Say this stupid stuff. All right, yeah. Come on up.
Thank you everybody for coming out this evening to the Grid Collaborative Workspace. We're really pleased to have the DevOps meetup group join us here. A little bit about the Grid is we have a lot of unique spaces within the Grid, and so whether you're an individual looking for a space to work for the day, or you're a large corporation looking for a meeting space, we can accommodate your requests. So I'm working properly on the IT side, and then my event planner, Javon Brown. So if you need space, please stop by and visit with us this evening. After the event, we'll be around for a little bit, or we can get your information and do some customized quotes. But what's nice about the grid is it allows your business to grow within the space. So you don't have to make a long-term commitment to have a private office. You can do co-working for as little as $25 a day. So all the way up to those other memberships that give you, a private office, but you don't have to make that commitment in the beginning. So our co-working memberships start at $160 for part-time. It gets you in this space 8 days a month, and then they have an unlimited plan as well. So I don't want to get in for you guys with all the pricing and everything, but like I said, my name is Jennifer. I'll be around during the whole event. Feel free to stop in and say hello. I'm just up at the front by the main entrance, but thank you again for coming out. We'd love for you guys to all check in on our Facebook page this evening and get us some credibility. We've got some exciting things happening here in the next couple of months that we'll be announcing on our Facebook and on those social media outlets. So thank you again.
That's awesome. I'll definitely be coming up here. It's super awesome to me. That's actually why I chose this place. If you guys have suggestions for where to do the next meetup, which I think will be roughly December, since it's a monthly meetup, yeah, go ahead and let me know on Slack or Twitter or wherever, because we need to figure out where we're going to do that. And I don't really have anything planned or whatever. There's a meetup or a co-working space in Waldo, maybe. And I heard there's another one over here in Overland Park, so rock and roll. Just let me know if you think of awesome places. This is a group run, group or whatever, so it's what you guys want to do, is what we do. So, yeah, rock and roll. I'm going to hand it over to Coté, and there's better ways of developing software. Rock and roll.
I've been thinking I need to change the name of this presentation, so hold on. You can see how the sausage is made here. All right. Hello. Welcome to my new talk. I'm not actually a DevOps talk. More seriously, the reason I want to change this is it actually is, as the URL would indicate, about thinking about how to do software better. And why do you want to care about that? And DevOps has a nice supporting role. And the reason why it's pertinent to DevOps stuff is basically like if you're doing DevOps, there's probably a reason why. Unless you're trying to entertain yourself because you're really bored or don't have kids or run out of things to happen so much. But you probably have some goal of doing it. And oftentimes we'll get into the goal is to create better software, as a lot of you. And then what I'm going to do is go over, I guess, when I look at substantial organizations, which is to say people who aren't just a team of folks who are renting a desk for $25 a day, but larger organizations, they tend to have a pretty delightfully predictable bucket of problems that they have. And sometimes ways of getting over it, sometimes not. But I want to go over kind of like I don't know if it's best or worst, but the hits of what that list is, and kind of give some suggestions on how to make your way through that. So first of all, that's me. This is a little background. I work at Futbol. I've been there almost 2 years now, which is exciting. As fond of saying, we're hiring. So if you like software, or if as I go through all these how to transform your organization to run better, you're like, that's not going to work here. You should ask me about jobs. And before that, I was an industry analyst for about 8 years at a couple of places. One place called Red Monk and another place called Overflow Research. And in both of those places, this is me establishing credibility. I'm just not giving you a pizza. Both of these places I studied infrastructure software and So that's fun. And then I was a software developer for about 10 years. And I do several podcasts, and I have a column, a monthly column in the Register where I write about DevOps and Apple. So if you want to see people tell me how stupid I am, they've been doing all this Agile stuff since the dawn of time. You should check out the comment section. It's very encouraging. They put something in the water over there that makes everyone even more aggressive than I am. So before I get to that, and there's only a little bit of pivotal stuff other than like some logoing at the bottom of the slide, but this is where I come from. You know, if you don't know pivotal, you might know us with a tracker, a project management piece of software that most people know. But we actually have 3 parts, and you know, we can talk more about this if you're really interested. We have a data part that has big data and memory processing stuff. And we have a lab suite that's all into, you know, I mean, they seem to be like the only shop that have come out of process and scale that does XP. And they literally pair with people who help them do all their actually in software. From funky little startups to like all sorts of regular companies in the world. And then I get my paycheck from this other part. We say platform, part of this digital platform, based on the open source thing. It's just a pass that you install that automates all the stuff so you have like provision servers there. We'll come back to this at the end. When you over it, you're ready to be receptive to this message. So before we get there, you know, I think it's good to understand, you know, much like I can't make a joke on that, but it's good to understand why you're going to go through change in the IT firm, what motivations you have, why you're doing it, and I think to do that, it's good to think about how we got here, and maybe you guys are unlucky, but when you get together with your friends, you can console them. You know, they're probably feeling pressure in the IT department to, you know, be useful or get out there. So, like, where does this come about, right? Like, can't you just sort of manage desktops and make sure people get their email? Like, that would be a lovely time. But it's actually the case that if you kind of go out there, probably just right down the street or anywhere globally, you kind of see this sentiment and this thing driving a lot of the changes. You know, this is a big giant head here. This is Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. So we like to say JPMC. And this is from his 2015, his company's 2015 letter to shareholders. And it has all sorts of fun stuff wrapped up. So first of all, you know, JPMC, big gigantic thing, big organization that probably has all of the problems and issues you might be thinking you have in IT times infinity, right? Like, so they have everything, all sorts of issues. So what's going on here is he's recognizing a threat that many people in the business world haven't recognized for a while, which is like these nerds in programming, or otherwise known metaphorically as Silicon Valley. Like, they're coming out here and they're like going to take our business away. They're basically trying to do the thing where you get a bunch of programmers sitting in a co-working space, and suddenly they're going to just write some code and drink a bunch of soda and replace everything that a bank does. And that's terrible. And then usually at this point, you're sort of like Uber, Airbnb, and Tesla and all that stuff. But you know, you can insert the narrative of how software is consuming things and eating big turkeys and all of that. But this is a very real thing that businesses face, and it's kind of like when we pivotal throughout and talk to people. A lot of people are interested in this, like, so like there's a fun anecdotal example where I guess the people at Google were like bored one day, and they're like, why don't we try to sell car insurance for like 3 months? And like all the people in the car insurance business, as you can imagine, freaked out, right? Because, you know, Google could basically just like enter that market and not have to be successful, but destroy it at the same time. If you've ever worked in computers, that's kind of what we do. So there's this acknowledgement that this is happening. You see this at all organizations, whether they're for-profit or non-profit. Non-profit people are driven a little bit differently, but they have the same urge. But then there's this great part, which, you know, is wonderful for the 2 mortgages I need to pay off. It's like, we need to do something about it. We're not going to just sit here and like let them take over the business. We're actually going to figure out how to take all the assets that we have, all the capabilities that we have, all the strategy, all the stuff that we have, and fight against it and do a good job at not letting them beat us. You know, hopefully buying some of our software or something later in the presentation. But it really is like kind of, you know, across my history of studying the IT world, it's kind of astonishing that you have someone who wears a tie, like knowing all this stuff and speaking to it and putting it in a fancy PDF that they send out to their investors. So IT is like really important nowadays to most large organizations, and many of them are trying to figure out like how to meet this call from their executives and other people about how do we finally start using computers to do something great rather than just sending good to get a baseline to start predicting how it's going to work out, right? It's always good to like sort of scenario out if things are going to turn out well, or if you should sort of like pull up stakes and go somewhere else, like maybe the HR department. But you know, there's two things that I'd like to look at to base that. These are just sort of like anecdotes that kind of confirm a lot of or data that confirm a lot of anecdotes that I always encounter. And also, as an analyst, I always need like a donut as far as our presentation. So but you look at this survey from my old shop, and it's essentially asking. So in response to the Silicon Valley is coming, you know, what's your digital strategy? How do you deal with those computers? And if you do, depending on how you add this up and how you feel about the very wordy answers over there, there's like 25, 30% or so of people who are like actually doing something now. There's always the we're planning to do something. That's one. Good job planning. And then there's also I also like the 9% of people who don't know. You know, they're just enjoying all this free leftover sandwiches and free food instead of figuring out what they're doing with their IT. But you look at this, and to use a phrase we used to use back in my strategy days, they're just drunk and disordered, right? Like they're not organized, they're not helping out. Things are not going well. So far, we've got all these executives who are like, hey nerds, you should do something with your computers. And the nerds are like, right? Like they're not really lining things up on anything worse. So you look at this other survey, and this is a great survey, like over the past, not the past, this is 2015, but over 3 years. And it's from the Cutter Consortium. And hopefully you can count them over the years. They've been around for a while. They're a good sort of agile consultancy. I have some friends who work there, but they're pretty legit. And you look at this one question in a big survey that they've been doing, and the one that I focus in on is I'll read it to you. What is your IT organization's role in business innovation? Or as I would read it, is IT doing a good job? Are they useful? Right? Like because like I guess you could optimize the business and just pull out costs. We've done that pretty well over the past year. So now we need to innovate and actually deliver something interesting. So you look at this, and it starts off with the to appropriate middle advertising maximum, right? Like half of my IT spending works, I just don't know which half. So you start off with like 50%, and then like over the course of the next few years, it goes down to like a third, right? So only about a third of IT is helping the business innovate in this survey here. Or put it another way, what is that like? You know, a little over 60% is just not useful, that's a big chunk. If I spend 60% of my monthly revenue on that useful stuff, then I would have a lot more boxes coming from Amazon. But you know, you want to optimize how your IT spend in a business environment. Now, I'm sure everyone in this room, by your ability to come here and enjoy some pizza, you're probably on the right side of that bar chart, right? Like, you're doing great. But you know, if you think about how your peers are doing and how everyone else is doing, they're not doing too well. And the expectations in aggregate about the role of IT is pretty low out there. It's not just the kind of sentiment that you see around. We have people on the business side, as we like to call it, or just organizations, wanting IT to do something valuable and help the business innovate. And instead of sort of like being able to meet that call, we have more of this situation going on, which is one of my favorite pieces of the book art. I've got a footnote here if you want to go find the person who does this and does good work. But you know, I don't really know what's going on here, but it's not a good situation, right? You got one, there's an escalator, which is always like right? Like unless you're in a department store, but then there's all that Japanese scary film. I used to watch a lot of Japanese horror movies, so it's a very specific trigger there, so to speak. But it's bad, like escalators everywhere, right? We got to figure out a way to like not be in this escalator situation. And so, as my last piece, well, not really, but as more or less my last piece of analyst stuff, I think to summarize all of that stuff to this point, like I have this semantic outdated theory. One, it aligns with our marketing message, and two, theory is a fun word. But you know, to summarize it, right? Like, so we're in this era where it's harder and harder for businesses to really submit their hold on things, right? Like, there's all sorts of great studies. Like, for the past 60 or 70 years, if you got listed on the S&P 500 as a company, you can stay up there an average of like 60 years. So if you ever see that aviator movie, like I always envision like Alan Ball, that big little like man, it's just like at the top of the world figuring stuff out. And you can stay up there forever with your giant globe sitting around. But then nowadays, there's studies, and you can kind of look up these. There's actually like a book version of this HBR article. Starting to read the article, but there's this idea of transient advantage versus competitive advantage, and that says that essentially because it's represented by the fact that if you look at the S&P 500 now, the average lifespan is kind of half of that, if not less. And people are predicting it'll be more like 15 years for company survivors. So it's hard to stay at the top. So that brings us to this idea that like, well, what's going to help save our day? Well, probably not desktop management. Like that's not going to help too much. And maybe bring your own device would be nice. Applications are cool, right? Like so there's also some good stuff there, but really to change how companies operate and help them out business-wise, you probably need to focus on custom-written software. That is, writing your own code, not just installing stuff off the shelf, right? And the truth is that lots of companies, most all of them actually write a lot of their own software, but many of them don't really do it in a way that we would recognize as good software or software that's following a good practice. Like it doesn't seem to be updated all the time. It's not as productive as it can be, and it's kind of just doing the best that they can with the ways of thinking and the technologies that they've had for some time. So what I want to do is the challenge that we have as IT people is essentially to improve the way we use software, custom-written software, if you will, in order to help out the business folks, and also, just to not be that sad cloud guy. And there's all sorts of ways of summarizing it, but the trite little way that I like to think about it, a simplistic way, is you introduce this idea of small batch thinking, right? And you should immediately be contrasting that with what that sounds great, with large batch thinking. So that's a good thought to keep in your head. But you shift to a way of doing things in small batches, and this is how it's not actually DevOps software. One of the things you're trying to enable is weekly, if not daily, releases of your software. And you just keep pulling on that iceberg to mix metaphors, and there's all sorts of stuff underneath the waterline that enables and makes that possible. So why do you want to do this? Other than it sort of being cool to be able to release software all the time. I think it's because the nature of software, like really if you want to do software well, you need to have a mentality that takes advantage of the fact that software, to be a little hyperbolic, day-to-day can be whatever you want. Like whatever you can imagine you can do in software, you can code it. It might take a while, it might not exactly work, but it's very agile and fungible by its nature. Now, the way most people think about software is more like our nicely haircut guy over here. This must have been before LASIK, because I'm sure you would have gotten that. But they have this idea that like we just sort of like spec out all of this stuff, and I tell everyone what to do, and I've got it all figured out, and then we're going to deploy it, and it'll be awesome. I'm like at 9 or 12 months, I don't even know how long. I got to go off to our annual club meeting, so you guys just figure it out. And I think also analogously, it's sort of like everyone here looks like they're old enough or they watch enough movies. But you remember those 80s submarine movies where like something breaks in it, right? There's always something breaking. And they go to like the officer's mess, and they like, whether it's Russian, it's tea, and if it's American, it's coffee, and they just like throw everything off of it and unroll this big schematic. The engineer who's inevitably smoking, he sort of says, we gotta fix this one little thing right here, and then they gotta like fashion a fork and like this fork and stuff and go fix the reactor, and then the movie's over. And like a lot of people think software is like that. Like there's some magical schematic that you go in, and if you just had the right parts, you could slot it in there, things would be great. But we all know software doesn't operate anything like that. It's more like not only are you deciding like we gotta rebuild the whole submarine while we're underwater, it's like maybe what we actually need is a hot air balloon. And so you're always changing around what this software is. And instead of knowing exactly that schematic, like our well-haircutted friend over there knows, instead you want to put it in a process that allows you to discover and figure out what the software is. So you're more like this equally well-haircutted creature over here who really doesn't know what's going on, but they know a process to follow, a way of thinking about it. And that's, in general, like what I would suggest small batch thinking is. Now, if you can read the footnotes here, small batch thinking goes by all sorts of different names. I just, in sort of like analyst in Microsoft fashion, I decided to rename a common thing into my own name so that I sound cooler. But whether you study like uppercase lean manufacturing, or it's like the PDCA with the Plan, Do, Check, Act loop, or you like lean startup because that sounds awesome, and just a similar sort of market discovery and market matchup thing going on there. Or you're really into like fighter pilots, and you like the OODA loop by that Colonel guy. Like they all kind of follow the same general pattern, which goes all the way back, if you're like an Anglophile, I guess, to Sir Francis Bacon, otherwise known as the scientific method. And that is, when you've got like an unknown problem in front of you, and you want to systematically figure out how to solve that problem, you come up with a hypothesis, right? And we'll get into a quick use case that explains this. How might I solve this problem? And then the important part is like, so how would I validate and study if this worked or not, right? And come up with a way you would test it. And then you actually, in our example, deploy it to production to end users and see what happens. And if it solves their problem and your theory was proven, good luck for you. You can get another slice of pizza. And And if it didn't work out well, then you just got to go back to the drawing board and refigure it out. Now, there's nothing like crazy revolutionary about that, but what a lot of the discussion in DevOps and cloud world in general nowadays gets to is like, what if we could do this like every week or every day? And you start thinking about the amount of feedback that you get, the amount of experiments you can run, and you realize that pretty rapidly you can very quickly improve your software, make it much better than if you were releasing every 9, 12, or however many months. And so, how do we enable this process, and like, what do we do with it? Becomes the next question that we look at. Now, just delving a little bit into that, right? Like, you know, for those who remember, we saw the submarine movies in the theaters. Like, you probably also remember like the rational unified process and waterfall strongman and all of that stuff. And if you look inside each of those batches, you know, pretty much the same stuff is going on. You still have to like figure out what you're going to do in the first two things. Kind of think about, design up, and think about how you're going to do it. And then it'd be handy if you wrote the code. Testing's always a good idea. But all you're doing is taking that same sort of cycle and compressing it down to as small a period as possible. Because again, what you're trying to seek is feedback. You want to get feedback if you've done something correctly. Not only if the thing stays up and running, but if it actually solves the problems that the users have. So once you have this feedback loop in place, this very quick feedback loop, what you want to do after that is finally tackle this topic, which is very nebulous. And you'll see I definitely never really explain what it is. The idea of user-centric design, which is a nicely self-definitional phrase, but it's basically like, if I have someone using my software, wouldn't it be great if it was actually helpful for them, right? And I can make jokes about expense filing all day, but just think about the software that you use in your daily life, and like, is this software helping out? Like, is it doing the best that it could? Like, are you second guessing it? Like, did someone actually sit down and observe what's happening here? Did they have those rich feedback loops where they could actually see how people are using it and then go back and change it very rapidly? And you know, I'm sure we've all seen this one from our journey, but it nicely explains a lot of the situation that's going on when you don't have this user-centric design approach, right? And the key thing, I mean, the roller coaster that looks like lots of fun, but it's very expensive. But the key part of this is not only that the person doing the software doesn't really know what's going on because it's not that schematic way of doing software, but you know, if you'll notice, the customer didn't really even know what they wanted either, right? They just had a general sense that they wanted to swing around when the weather's nice. So it's not only people writing the software have to go through this process of discovering and refining it, but it's the users themselves. And you know, for better or worse, we see this a lot in pivotal cases where we have to work with people writing the software. And we sort of co-discover what the problem actually was and also what the solution for it is. So just as a quick example, anyone a big fan of the IRS? Yeah, we all like the IRS. So this is a good case, and you can look up this if you really want to delve into a great presentation. It's a little dated, but it's from one of our pivotal labs people and someone who actually works at the IRS. And they give this great presentation about how they apply all of this thinking to a pretty important thing going on in the IRS. So I'm sure no one here has ever had this problem, but sometimes people, they don't pay their taxes on time, and then you're delinquent. And the IRS is like, hey, how about I penalize you every single day? How do you like that? So, you know, every day, how much you owe goes up and up. And so, while you might have mixed feelings about calling up the IRS, you probably would really like to know how much money you owe right now so you can pay it off. So, the way that they normally do this, or they've been doing this, is there's a call center. Which, you know, hopefully that doesn't make you sad and feel all warm and fuzzy at this point, but you call someone up and they kind of tap away at the keyboard, and there's long wait times, people get disconnected. I think if I remember in that talk, the IRS person says, every now and then you just get disconnected, and we call that a courtesy hang-up or something like that, which sounds about right. You know, it sort of like removes you of your suffering for that moment. Anyways, it's also very costly to run a call center and look this stuff up. And, you know, it's not like are like, I'm going to call the call center. I have no idea what you're showing me. So they show all this stuff, and they can't weed out that one little thing that they want. And because they put this in front of users, and they can refine their theory and adapt it and test it out again, what they ended up with, and it sounds ridiculous when you put it this way, but think about software you've worked on and how these ridiculous insights are actually hard to obtain on like 9-12 month cycles. What they found out is that if you want to know how much money you owe the IRS, you really only want to know how much money you owe the IRS. Like, you're not really interested in the relationship you had. So they end up with this better UI that just shows you flat out that. And then you don't want to call the call centers, and they can save money, you're delinquent taxes on time. Everyone's happy. You get that little rope swing underneath the tree. So again, it's like a really simple example, but getting to that point where you could find those insights out really quickly. And then also you have the ability to fix it, and you don't have to, like someone like the IRS, it might take 9 or 12 months to redeploy that and try it over again. But you've got this ability to continually refine the software and multiply that across all the features and capabilities you would have in your software. So that's sort of like the end goal that we're trying to enable, right? Like, why am I spending all this time converting my bash scripts to Puppet and Chef and everything? Like, what's the point? And the point is to like make better software, right? To really improve the software that your users are having and help the businesses out. So the next thing that you get to is like, so if that's the goal that I have, at the team level, what are me and my fellow folks going to do to enable this? Like, what kind of skills do we need? Because what I would argue is that it's not really like the software or the hardware that's a problem, right? Like, we got technology coming out of our ears and servers and everything. I was just talking with like an SVP at some big company the other day. He was trying to like sell back his data center to people. We got too much of that running around. But it's really like the meat problems that you have, the way people think and operate. Like, that's where the core of the issue typically always rests, and where it certainly is now. So the first check to make too, and then I'll get to the DevOps section. The first step is to take an assessment of like, so are we actually doing our actual coding and management in the best way possible? And at the moment, maybe with some exceptions, basically doing agile software development, all the practices around that, seems like the best way to go about doing things, right? It's been about, depending on how you count, it's been about 20 years or so since these practices have been out there and been refined. So they sort of kind of work, and the ones that don't work have been weeded out. But when you look at this survey and this chart, the distributed teams one is actually considered a negative skill for what I'm about to say. That's Gartner just trying to screw with your head. But all the other ones are basically some of the core skills of doing agile. And if you look at this chart, the way you read it is they did the survey, and if you add up the blue and the green of all the survey respondents, those are people who are doing those practices, basically in 2015. So you can kind of project a little higher. And you look at it, and you're like, oh, unit testing, sure. That used to sound bonkers, but now it's actually easy, so I'll do that. And then there's the trick of distributed teams. You're like, refactoring, I know how to right click, no problem. And then, but then very quickly, you go down this list of things, and you realize that at least when people are telling, I assume it's the truth, they're not actually following a lot of the practices of Agile. You remember my little crack about the register comment pool, I should just send this to them every time. But what to do with this is to think, one, do I know what each of these things are, right? Because these are kind of accepted ways of doing software. Do we know what they are? And the next question is, are we doing them? And it's really important to actually assess if you're doing them or not. And you see this is a reoccurring theme that we'll get to, especially with legacy, is people kind of always say they're doing Agile, but they're not really, right? They're not following these things. So to use that old journalistic, or the thing the editor says to the journalists, it's like, if your mother tells you she loves you, check it out, right? So whenever people tell you they're doing Agile, you should really verify that and be suspicious of it, because survey says not likely. So next, our friend, DevOps. So, I think maybe for the past 10 years or so, back when it was called Agile Infrastructure, DevOps has been this kind of squirrely definition that's gone all the way from Unix admins to the Rainbow and Sandal set, and now it's finally kind of been industrialized and understandable, right? I mean, on the surface of it, it all, I'm sure in this group, you don't need a little roadshow what it is, but it's pretty well understood what it is. And now, thankfully, there's this, after, 10, 20 years of development, there's this 450-page tome that basically spells it out. And it's the one before this that was good was the Effective DevOps book. But I think this one is if you read those two, you kind of understand what DevOps is and what the practices are, and have a better definition than the old one be earnest down in Austin. So, for a long time, DevOps was largely defined by the technology, which has proven not to be like a very effective way of defining it, right? So I remember back when I was an analyst, I would be in meetings all the time where people would say, oh yeah, we're doing DevOps. We just got all of our certificate of awesomenesses and we converted everything over to Puppet. So we're doing the DevOps, right? And then that kind of shifted to like we're using containers at some point, and then it's just over and over again, people try to define and certify it by technology use instead of defining it by, again, the meatware, the practices that people are following and the things that they're thinking, all that squishy cultural stuff. So if you don't want to read that 450-page tome, which I wouldn't blame you, if you just read the last 2 years or so of the DevOps report, it's really solidified into something useful there. And I won't go into these in detail, but if you haven't read these, then you definitely should, because these two charts summarize a lot of the actual practices that you do in DevOps, all the way from checking all your code in to truck-based development, and also, as you can see, focusing on small batch approaches to limit work in progress and all these sorts of things. So it pretty nicely outlines, these are the practices that seem to be working. I mean, there's a bunch of, I have a philosophy degree, so once I see art in a second, I have no idea what's going on, but it seems legit, the way that they've done the study. So that's my actually not DevOps part, but the important part is to think about, so what are the two things at a team level we should be focusing on? We need to know that we're doing Agile and we're doing it well. And if we want to keep the software up and running, which is always the unstated requirement the customer has, right? The user would like software to work. It's probably a good idea to start thinking about how DevOps informs that and how it helps you keep your software up and running, right? Because it's not just having pages on developers, but it's also having operations people. As I remember, they used to characterize this, right? The developers, the people who write the bugs, right? Well, it'd be nice to go help them and not have those bugs written. And when things crash out, it would be nice if developers were there helping out. And you see over and over again, we'll get to some small team thinking in a little bit, but that seems to actually be successful, and as I like to say, be a thing. So once you have things fixed at the team level, that's great if you have one team, but most organizations I talk with, they have 50, 100, countless numbers of teams, right? Their challenge is how do we scale all of this thinking to a large organization and be effective? Because if we can't do that, this is all just a bunch of fancy fun talk, which is delightful, I guess. So then the next step becomes, how do we transform our organization around? And that's really why I think a lot of people who speak on this topic end up talking about culture a lot. Because it really does get down to rearranging and reprogramming your meatware, if you will, your organization, thinking about how you do that. I think that's where the real challenge is. So that's what I spend a lot of time talking about and what I'll go over with the rest of the time. So I think it's worth, I don't know if you've seen this movie, I think it's worth really focusing on this stuff, because it's, anytime someone's asking you to change or they use some word like digital transformation, it's a lot like this scene for this movie, right? You're just going about your life, things are pretty nice, you got nice units, dry clean shirt. All of a sudden this old bald person walks up, and they're like, hey, would you like a transformative experience? All you have to do is suffer and you might die, right? And that's sort of whenever change agents come into your organization, it's kind of like that. And I mean, it worked out okay for him, more or less. I didn't never read the last books, but at least in the first one, it's pretty cool. But you're going to go through a lot of suffering and hardship and these weird people who don't seem to brush their teeth. So it's good to sort of back up with a strategy and know why you're going about doing it. And the reason that I like to emphasize this a lot, and this is, I think from some of the more recent DevOps reports, is this is an interesting question that one of my analyst friends asked the people who put that together, and it was essentially how are large organizations doing with applying DevOps? And if you kind of slice it out like that, it's a little hard to read this kind of chart, but it's essentially companies who are 10,000 or more people, so really big organizations, have the most difficulty applying all of these good, healthy practices. So the larger your organization, the harder it's going to be to change. So the more time you'll have to spend changing, right? It's not going to be as easy as you might just read on your Hacker News or your Twitter feeds or wherever you get your daily news. So the first thing, I think the most important step, is that there's a couple of things. I've kind of reduced it down to this idea of an anti-pattern, the stop hating yourself pattern, which is oftentimes I'm in a room that's not quite as nice as this, and you can tell we don't spend a lot of money on IT facilities, and I get this sort of 10 to 90 minute screed about how we can never change and everything's really hard, and basically we suck. And so, nice meeting with you, thanks for the free sandwiches. And it's really this very self-defeating kind of like Eeyore, if you remember that guy. It's like, that's not much of an IT department, but I'm sort of attached to it. And so that's the first thing you gotta get over. It's like, I mean, like I said, Futbol's hiring. But like, you should figure out, like, not being defeatist in this role you are, and figure out how to just like pick yourself up by your bootstraps and actually do something. And then that's the second thing, as pictured here. I don't know if you remember this. I mean, every season of Mad Men, the later years had the same scene, but like this sort of pivotal scene, whatever season this was, where our buddy Don there is just like at the bottom of the barrel, despite being in a nice Manhattan apartment. And his friend comes and he's like, oh man, you gotta do the work, right? Like if you want to change and improve, just sit down at your desk and write some copy, as demeaning as that is. And so there's a lot of times where people want to change. They don't actually do the work. They just assume they're gonna like spread some DevOps pixie dust on stuff and it's gonna magically transform. So it's gonna be difficult and hard, right? You've actually got to do something about it. Now, how many people in this room are managers? All right. Well, everyone else is gonna love this slide. So, the first thing that is that what I've observed is that, especially with large organizations, but the success of them changing begins and ends with management. It's really their responsibility to start it and to end it. Now, if you imagine like, you guys have sort of like crazy big brisket sandwiches up here, right? Or like big pastrami sandwiches. If you imagine management is like the bread, right? And then in the middle is like the staff that's actually doing all the heavy lifting and tasting really good. But you gotta have bread wrapped around it, otherwise you just kind of mess up brisket on your plate. So it's really like everyone has to get involved, but management is the first one that needs to start pushing this along. And there's all sorts of things they need to do. You know, I often think the best way to reduce it down is most management I encounter. I'm sure you've got YouTube folks like are not like this, but they're what I call Christmas tree managers. Like they have a weekly meeting and there's a big chart on the board and there's a bunch of sentences on it. Next to each sentence is a light that's either like red, yellow, or green, right? And they're basically, and you only have so much time, so you're like, what's up with those red ones? And you're just trying to figure out like why you're changing out light bulbs on your Christmas tree. And that's how you spend your time, your status checking. Now instead, if you think about how you would apply a small batch approach to not only software but organizations as a whole, you want your managers and your leaders to be asking what you're learning, to figure out how to orient the organization around being more generative and sort of like thinking about how to use this feedback. Now, thankfully, since there's only a few managers, we don't have to worry about all that. That's their problem. But if you are in that situation, there's a couple of good references other than kind of like changing your frame of mind around. I mean, first thing is like you should probably tell people what the goals are and that things are due and try to be genuine about that a little bit too. But these are two books that are great references for like thinking through how managers themselves change things. The first one is a lot more tactical and practical, and the second one is a lot of if you really still want to do your Christmas tree management stuff, like there's some good suggestions of you get the pink Christmas tree there with lights attached and how to optimize all of your metrics and everything. Now, as I was alluding to, this is my friend Matt Curry here. We do a podcast every now and then, embarrassingly, instead of frequently. But he has a lot of great talks that go over from a management level. What do you actually do to be genuine and trusted by your employees? How do you internal market it and things like that? And I think one of the core skills that any employee has, just for their own sanity, is a pretty good BS detector. They're like, that sounds like a bunch of crap that I'm not going to waste my time on, right? So like hypocrisy just like is not going to work out. So management really does need to get involved and sort of be in the same boat, right? They can't just sort of like throw out a bunch of slides and scurry on to their final lunches afterwards. And you see this, this is one example of that. Like at Allstate, when they were transforming over here, they've got a great story. Look up, their CEO at this, not their CEO, but their senior IT executives at this very old company started just wearing like t-shirts and hoodies. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but you take that leadership more seriously. And it really is, again, just like the tip of the iceberg of things that management would do to legitimately change over, and therefore win over the support of the employees and try to do actual transformation. So now, here's what the rest of us can do. Send the management off to a workshop out how to transform the organization. So when you look at the team level, and this is where our buddy, the two pizza team is, like I always like to calculate it. It's like we're on like a 10 pizza team tonight. But it's more than just like some funny little headline that you can go read on Business Insider or whatever. When you go out and study the organizations that are reducing down to the idea of a balanced team, or a team that is basically about 6 to 12 people who have all of the roles fully dedicated at their time to working they have like tremendous success with it. And it's not only tremendous success as in getting work done, but the costs actually start to balance out. Right? So if you think about it, yeah, and the frequent objection to this is like, I spend 25% of my time on this and 10% on that, and I also gotta have lunch, and like you're just striped out like a database sort of. And what ends up happening is you don't really get anything done in a timely way. So like you lose all of your optimization. Whereas instead, if you take this kind of counterintuitive idea that we're going to dedicate this team of people full time to this product, you actually end up getting a lot more done. And there's some other interesting effects that we can go over in pair programming where you sort of like actually do work. You're putting on up there all day long instead of just responding to high-end stuff like that as often happens. So the advice here is like, as you're orienting your organization, you got to organize around dedicated product teams that are focused on just those products, not sort of shared weird resources that communicate to particular system. So the next problem that people often encounter is, we got all this legacy stuff. Now, legacy software is always tricky, right? First, it's good to start with the definition of legacy, and I think from a purely writing code and architectural perspective, like Michael Coté had a great definition way back in the early 2000s in his excellent book. But at a higher level, like I often think of legacy as basically software that you have to change that you're really afraid of changing. Right? Like, there has to be that fear. Otherwise, if it's software you have to change and you're just like delightful, you would just call that your software. Like no one really describes that as legacy. So there's something dangerous about this legacy code that you have to figure out. And the depressing answer is that if you find yourself beset with all this legacy stuff, there's really not great answers. Like the most like reactive, like pessimistic thing you can do is like round up all your enterprise architects and say like, hey, what would you say you guys do around here? Right? Like if we're in this situation where we've got so much technical debt that we're stressed out about legacy software, so you can't move IT forward, wasn't that your job? Right? Like I mean, dotted lines and boxes are great, but it'd also be nice if we could write new software. And you know, so there's two things you can do in response to that, right? Like one, if you haven't done things like virtualize and kind of like figure out low priority applications so you can kind of like suck them out and deprioritize them or just decommission them totally. The next step that you can do, and you'll see people talking about straight-line patterns and stuff, which you know, you're not familiar with it, it's like a plant, not as much as you might like it to be a psychopath that's running around straight-line things, but you can wrap an API around it and slowly like draw out the old stuff as you put the new stuff in front of it. But really, what I would recommend is if this is kind of like the agile advice. Like, if you feel like you've got too much legacy stuff and it's holding you back, you should probably put some sort of portfolio management in place. Now, once again, you probably have whole teams of people who supposedly do this, but then why is this a problem, right? So you should figure out how should we start managing our portfolio. If you don't have a good way of figuring out managing the full life cycle of an application, I always think this Jeffrey Moore book, Escape Velocity, is a good start. Like it's oriented towards vendors like ourselves, but it has a lot of good tactics for how, not really how you write code at all, he's not a technical person, but how do you manage and create an organization that doesn't let managing legacy software stall it out? And how do you set up incentives and groups and everything? It's one of the more insightful ways of doing portfolio management I've seen. So the next issue, before we start to wrap up here, is there's always like, auditors, the people who always prevent us from doing anything fun, right? Those are these people who have all these rules that we barely understand, and basically it means that we can't do anything, right? You're back to this hitting yourself thing. Now, the interesting thing about auditors, if there is an interesting thing, is I mean they're pretty simple in what they do in a good way, right? I mean, I'm no auditor professional, you know, software design here, but like, there's kind of two things an auditor wants. One, they want to know that there are some rules that you're doing something about and following. And then the second one is like that journalistic advice. It's like they kind of want to check out and verify that you're doing it, right? Like they're not actually going to just, you know, you can't just be like, yeah, we got 100% quality, and then they're gone. Like they need a way of verifying it. So the way that's technically done is you have like meetings and Word docs, right? And I think it was one of our users from Liberty Mutual. I was watching a talk of his from our Spring Platform conference. He had a great way of putting it. He's like, well, you know, you can put whatever you want in a Word document. Like, there's really no assurance that you're doing it. You just type it up, and that's kind of like the normal currency that auditors use. Versus, as he was pointing out, I mean, while he was putting out like, while it's possible to falsify these things, it sure would be a lot of work. You know, you can't really falsify Git have this extremely highly traceable, reliable way of verifying that very repeatable process of being followed. And so when you take that kind of searing insight, as it is to auditors, and you sort of, you should ask your boss to get like basically an expense account over the next 3 months to take the auditors out to lunch and buy a nice bottle of scotch. But you get friendly with them, and you sort of say like, this is the way things are nowadays. Usually the auditors think, that's great, I love it, right? Like, it's a lot better than a Word document, just trusting that you're actually doing these things. It's actually, you can automate compliance essentially, which I don't think a lot of people in the audit world kind of are realizing this, so you kind of push it. And that kind of negates the need to get stressed out about auditors. So the next step is all of this is sounding even remotely interesting, and know where I'm almost. The question that always comes up is like, well, what should we do next? And I like to spend a lot of time talking about this because there's another Andy pattern that comes up all the time. It's like everyone drinks all of our Kool-Aid, which is delicious, whatever flavor you want, and they drink it. They're just ready to go. Like, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to rewrite the entire downtown site, like tomorrow. And then like, despite the fact that my quote-editor friends who might be here would love that, that's a bad idea, right? Like, you don't want to take your core, biggest, giganticest thing and have a completely new way of thinking, operating, organizing, and software stack supporting. And instead what you want to do is go through a process where you kind of sort out what I would call the important but safe applications, right? And you can kind of see that in this quadrant. They're easy and important, or you can even think of them as low risk, right? So they're not like science projects, like how would I schedule a conference better, but they're actual customer or business-facing things that have some value. But if they blow up, you can kind of silently get rid of them. Or if people celebrate failure as a way of learning, you can acknowledge that and keep building. But you want to start with a series of small projects and then build up to that. You can see this is an actual number of applications. This maps the application instances in Cloud Foundry, which is not a one-to-one mapping, but never mind the numbers, just look at the shape of the curve. You can see this is Home Depot's experience that they've been over recently, where they started off pretty small, and then at some point they're kind of figuring it out, and ramping it up, and training staff, making sure stuff works, and then it just like hockey sticks up right away, right? So once they've built up this confidence slowly, then they start conquering the larger applications. But you definitely want to start as small as possible so that you're learning and kind of containing the internal market around spreading this out. Failure is the best way to shut down any nascent project in a large organization, so you want to have a lot of control of that at first. So finally, before I get to the wrapping up part at the end, the favorite thing I say in the last 10 slides of the presentation. This is a sentiment that I finally got to confirm with Keith around here, so you probably recognize that name. He's one of the more soft-spoken developers out there. He used to work at Netflix and talks about how microservices are awesome and all this like generative fun culture stuff. And I think he just got a job at AWS, which is fun for him. Anyways, he was giving a talk somewhere about similar stuff, and some large CTO came up and was like, that sounds great. But as I understand it, because they all talk like Colombo apparently, right? Like, as I understand it, you have these vats full of green goo up in the Pacific Northwest, and you just like spontaneously grow these developers in. We're able to do these great feats of strength. You got a regular Professor Xavier up there running your development program. And as he nicely quipped, he was like, we just hired them from you, right? Like, you were just kind of doing a bad job at managing them. Instead, we set up a culture and environment. We fixed our beatware so that regular people could, have these superstar powers. Also, superstars are going to deal with noises, going to intelligence, but essentially, if management and the organization sets up the right kind of environment and culture, you can do all sorts of stuff with your staff. You don't need to think that you don't have to. So finally, the last Andy pattern, and I'll just go over it briefly. A lot of people like to build this entire platform of stuff to support their software, right? They're like, we got some computers. Or maybe we would start with Zero, make it happen. And people build up this gigantic platform of stuff to automate the way that they run, they do their software. And then, as I like to say, they essentially end up having two problems. They have the original products they were working on, and now they have this brand new product that they have to manage. And if you read between the lines of a lot of the talks that you see at our conferences, the customers go over this moment where they built a platform, and then they realize that they're spending all of their time, too much of their time managing that platform. They need something else, right? In the same way that you wouldn't really like write a file, maybe you would, but you wouldn't really write a file system or an operating system or a networking So it's good to, whether you choose us or someone else, it's good to consider getting something, I guess no one says off the shelf anymore, but getting a ready-made platform to operate in. Because while developing platforms are fun, it doesn't make our buddy Jamie Dimon happy, right? Like he doesn't want to pay you to write file system. He wants to pay you to write applications to help run the business. And we got lots of people that we work with. Some of these people have invested in us, and our friends Garmin up there, we were having it earlier today, but there's all of these people who've been working with us for several years, helping us sort out what the software does, and giving us real world input on stuff. So we're not just some wacky thing you can go fork off somewhere and get running with. So with that, thanks for having me here. I always like to end with this quote from the Agile Manifesto, if you remember that. I don't keep it in my pocket or anything, but it really represents what I've figured out that I've been doing over the past 20 or so years. And I think what my team at Futbol does, and what Futbol as a whole does, which is figuring out how to do software better and helping other people. And my ask of you would be that as you sort these things out and figure them out, like it's nice to sort it out on your own, but it's really important that you get out there with events like this and other things and start telling people what you figured out and how you solved it to help them out. Because otherwise you're just kind of hoarding all the knowledge to yourself, which I guess is fun for you, but it's not right for me. So thanks, I appreciate it.
I have a question.
Sure.
First, thanks for coming out and doing this. You have an awesome perspective that I think most of us don't have. A lot of people in the room probably worked with the same company for many years. Probably a big company around in the city. Or there's some people working with smaller companies. But you had an interesting view. Can you think of, since you work with so many different teams, can you think of one particular team, and if you can, share who it was, and what was so magic about that one team? So you saw about your overarching, what you should do. Is there a specific example? What was the magic about that team? Or
Sure.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I'm trying to sort through the stories that not that I can because of disclosures, but I can because I remember to tell. I guess was the question. I referenced Home Depot a few times, and I think they're representative in a couple of interesting ways. The first one is, there was that anecdote about moving from being a Christmas tree manager. And I remember, I didn't hear this, I heard the secondhand, not directly. I remember hearing their CEO, their CEO, started having meetings where he would start asking, what did you learn this release? What did you learn on this product? And that was a dramatic shift, all the way to the top, I guess not up to the board, but up to the top of the corporation. We're going to change over to actually study and learn, and as we used to say, embrace failure, figure that out. So I also wanted the status of things. So tell me how you're thinking about that. And the way that trickled down to the team level is their teams. Since everyone here, as you said, works at large organizations, you understand that there's hundreds of applications that do all sorts of things, across there. So if you imagine the way that a large retailer works, they have lots of applications. And that same mentality of exploring what the actual problem is, figuring out a way to solve it, and then testing it, there's all sorts of stories at Home Depot of how they apply that from the custom paint center desk in the store to the Pro Tool rental. And they actually have teams that they actually go into the stores and watch and observe people and ask them questions. And they come up with a theory of how they would fix that. And they write the code, they deploy it, and then they watch them and observe them, and they refine it over and over again. And it really is when you sort of wind that sweater, and that's a bad analogy, but when you pull that apart and look at it, it's kind of phenomenal that they're getting to that point. And that's very representative of, I guess, if you're successful, that's always a good qualifier to be a little halo effective. But that's what I tend to see with most of the teams that I work with, is they really get that idea of we need to actually go out and study what people are doing and put that process in place where we can code it up and test it out, and it tends to work out well.
So many larger organizations have a security breach, pretty sensible one, and especially in the past few years. A lot of these breakages were the same ones that are going to build secret information, where they I wonder, you brought up how people often, they lip service and they don't actually spend time to go towards it. I want to hear your thoughts on that security.
Yeah, I mean, I think security. So first of all, I'm not a caveman security expert. I don't know anything about security. I'll have other doers and whatnot, but yeah, I mean, we have a great sort of security visionary and product person, Justin Smith. I mean, he has much more specific ways of putting it, but it does, as you were alluding to, it kind of gets down to like, yeah, you should actually do some work. Right? Like if you want to secure your stuff, it's not easy. Just like it's not easy writing good software. And the kind of audacious thing he throws out there is, if I remember it correctly, is the 3 R's, which is essentially, a huge percentage of your security problems amount to like, we need to patch this code. We haven't. And so his idea is, which you could do in like, in a cloud native approach, definitely with cloud foundry stuff, is like, oh, what if we just sort of like updated the operating system every few hours, right? Like by the nature of how this application is, you can basically deploy whatever you want without it. Never mind the static part over there, that's a whole other section. But you can always be updating this to get the most recent patches. So that takes care of a certain amount of it. And then you have the, I forget the third R, which would be fun for me. But then you have the idea of what are they going to basically, there's 2 other R's. There you go. And rotating, yes. You should rotate your passwords, which if you have a spouse who's not in IT, good luck with that, right? Like that's not going to pay out for you. And then the rest of them are essentially like you're thinking about how do I always repair the problems that I have, and how do I put a system in place that allows me to fix issues as they come up, right? And in the same way that you could be releasing on a daily or weekly cadence, if you actually need to update your system, for whatever security reasons, you have that at your disposal. So I think the thing that most security people would never say is like, yeah, that stuff's going to happen. But what you need, what they quickly shift to is like, you should be able to recover from that as quickly as possible, right? And I think when I look at historically how people have handled security, they don't really think of that, at least from a developer standpoint that I have, they don't really think of how do I enable that speedy fixing of it so much. And I don't know what practices in place to do it. It's more like, I don't know, again, as a developer, this is my perspective on all these who aren't developers. It's more like, how about I don't have to do anything? That'll be really secure. So, obviously that doesn't cut the mustard, so we can introduce the same rapidity to use another R in that situation. Sorry, that was a terrible answer. It's fun giving. Any other questions? Great, well you guys have asked 2 more questions than most groups I talked to. So that's good, that's very encouraging. So the title change obviously did the trick. Thank you.
I'm probably going to